I will call the meeting to order for Monday, January the 12th, and if the clerk would please take the roll.
Councilmember Archibald.
Here.
Councilmember Ashford.
Present.
Councilmember Cole.
Here.
Councilmember Harris.
Here.
Councilmember Lewandowski.
Here.
Councilmember Ruiz.
Here.
Mayor Rep.
Here. You have before you the minutes from the regular meeting of December the 8th. Is there a motion to receive and file?
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Ashford. Is there a second?
Support.
Mayor Pro Tem Archibald. Is there any additions or deletions? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes will stand as submitted. We have one presentation tonight. If the clerk would please read that.
The year-end report of the Code Enforcement Unit will be presented by Lieutenant Marcy Huron and Chief Michael Reeves.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, City Manager. Tonight, myself and Lieutenant Kuhn are going to present the 2014 year in review for our Code Enforcement Division. I want to start off and thank the Code Enforcement staff, which includes the inspectors, secretarial, the AHB, judicial officers, also Attorney Todd Schaudy, and everybody else that's worked on this program. I'll have to tell you that it was a daunting venture to create this program from literally nothing to what it is today, but we have a ways to go yet. Any issues that have come about with the program over the last year are my responsibility. All the kudos for this program should go to Lieutenant Kuhn and her staff. Lieutenant?
Well, I like that part. I'm just kidding. Mayor, City Manager, Council members, I'm excited to present this to you. I wasn't sure when I took this responsibility on what, oh, of course now it won't work, and I did test it out beforehand. Did it? Okay. How it would all end up at the end of the year, but I'm really happy to report our 2014 goals. Basically, we needed to start from scratch and create this fix-it ticket that the public told us they wanted. That was just making the ticket readable and incorporating everything we wanted to have in it and making it legal with the help of Todd. That was quite an undertaking in itself. I mean, we created an Administrative Hearings Bureau, which I'll talk about in a minute, and we did that within the city building. So, in essence, created our own mini district court. We interviewed, hired, and trained hearing officers to hear those court processes. And then we created a system to document these hearings, capture ticket information and statistics, all within the BS&A software that we have. And I'm happy to say we reached those goals. This clicker does not want to work too well. So you gave us tools and revised the ordinances in December of 2013. We began issuing our fix-it tickets at about the end of January and then had the administrative hearings ready to go at the end of February, just for a quick timeline. What a fix-it ticket is we give people time to correct the violation. If they comply, the ticket's dismissed and there's no fines. But if there's no compliance, then the matter will go to the Administrative Hearings Bureau. We do give, on occasion, straight tickets where we don't give them time to correct and it goes straight to the administrative hearing. And that's used for repeat offenders. You know, I guess we'd use it about 5% of the time. It turned out about 8% of the time. But it saves time and streamlines the process, and it seemed we use this more for grass violators. You know, at the first time you didn't cut your grass, your second or third ticket, we weren't going to ask. We were just going to cut it. Yeah, maybe there's a... Okay. So what an administrative hearing officer is a licensed Michigan attorney who specially trains and acts as a magistrate or a judge. Our hearing officers are Stan Hurt and John Livesay, and they rotate 2 times a month. And they listen to testimony from the inspectors as well as the violator if they appear. And then they create an order of finding. And the order may dismiss the matter altogether, may give the violator more time to correct the problem, or it may assess fines or fees. The tickets are $50 for the first offense, second one's $100, the third one is $200, but the administrating hearings officer has the ability to impose fines up to $10,000. Each time someone appears at an Administrative Hearings Bureau, there's a $10 per violation assessment fee that the state of Michigan has us tack on. So 2014 statistics. We basically took in about 2,500 code enforcement complaints in the system. About 2% were initiated by staff members, whether it was police, firefighters, DPW, and then 23% were initiated by citizens calling in, and 75% were initiated by the 5 blight inspectors that we have working out there. Out of these 2,500 complaints, 88% of the time we did issue a ticket. So we actually issued 2,218 tickets. Out of all those violation or complaints that were entered, 5% of the time, people would just immediately correct it when we drove up. Or perhaps it was graffiti, and we don't tend to ticket graffiti. When it, if your place is damaged by graffiti, you're more of a victim than a suspect. If it was county-owned property, perhaps a foreclosure that ended up being the county's property, we're not going to ticket them. We call them and they fix the problem for us. 5% of the time, the citizen's call to us was unsubstantiated. Perhaps the citizen corrected before we got there, or maybe they just weren't sure what the ordinances were. And then 1% of the time, maybe a new owner bought it, maybe we recommended it to the planning department for a code case, and then we have 4 of them that are just in the system at the end of December. We just haven't rectified them yet. So out of these 2,218 tickets, we dismissed 1,729 of them. So that's 78% immediate compliance. Another 17% went to an administrative hearings bureau. So to add that together, it'd be great to say 95% compliance, but about 10% of that is the city remedying the problem themselves, whether we cut the grass or we clean the yard because they wouldn't. And then 84 of those cases are just still in upcoming hearings, or perhaps we've given people more time to comply. And then there's about 25 cases or so that are just unresolved. We have them on a list we call the list of the lost, and we're evaluating them for a Plan B. As I keep hitting this clicker. And we could give them a new ticket like we did with Sperry's and go through the AHB process again. We learned that we can actually take an AHB order and take it across to circuit court and have a circuit court judge perhaps enforce the order if they feel the need is there. We can garnish wages to seek compliance, which we may do in the future, and we perhaps can work to connect more with grant money or assistance programs or volunteer groups. Maybe we didn't reach out to the first time around, or perhaps they weren't available. So we're not going to forget about the ones, that 5%, we're still working on it. So out of those 2,200 and some tickets, some of those tickets had multiple violations on them. So there were about 2,900 violations that were enforced. 44% of those are for open storage, which is the majority of the violations. I was surprised to see 394 tickets had something with vehicles on them, which I thought was a pretty impressive number. We only had to tow 7 out of 394. So people did what we asked. Either moved them into a garage or took them to a scrapyard or sold them. I mean, granted, some of them were moved to other neighborhoods, but we catch on to that. And landlords, too. They actually helped out and towed a lot of these cars themselves when they saw that there was an issue. 36% were for, tall grass is the basic violation there, and then 18% for exterior structure, whether that's paint or garages or porches, and then the 1% at the end for businesses, and then structures that are incomplete or uninhabitable. I need to start. So we did order grass cuts and cleanups. Grass cuts 230 times. It cost taxpayers over $20,000 to do so. So far we've had almost $8,000 reimbursed by citizens. We cut 275 lawns in 2013. We cleaned 22 yards this year, cost almost $7,000. We've been reimbursed just over $400 so far by citizens, and that's compared to 13 cleanups in 2013. So if you look at what we paid adding grass and cleanup cost all together, it was just under $40,000 in 2013, and it's just under $30,000 this year, so that's quite a savings there. And we've recouped more money so far than we did in last year, which is nice. As far as fines owed, This is for the fine that's on a ticket, that $50, $100, $200 that I talked about earlier. We have $30,000, just a little over, that it was owed to us. So far, about $5,500 has been reimbursed. Last year's system was a totally different system, but there was about 8,000 fines due, and we received 1,400 of that. We haven't quite started with the collections program yet as far as looking at garnishment or single lot assessment to recoup that money, but that is under development. Okay, I think I'm not in charge of the clicker now is what I'm gathering. So there was 2,500 complaints in 2014, like I said, and 2,200 tickets were issued, streamlines the process. The year prior, we had 1,622 complaints for code enforcement in the system, and we weren't really sure. Cindy McPherson, who did that by herself, didn't keep track of letters she sent out, so there could have been 2,000 letters, who knows. Sometimes she didn't send one, sometimes she sent 4, it just depended on the situation. She hand-wrote civil infraction tickets out. She hand-wrote 111 of them, compared to the 2,218 that we issued this year. But this is a completely different program, so it's kind of hard to compare apples to oranges up here. We had 382 cases go forward to the Administrative Hearings Bureau, and some of those people came over and over again to try to get compliance. So we had 521 hearings that were held. We took 2 cases to circuit court. Luckily, we won both of those. And Cindy McPherson actually had 15 cases go to circuit court in the year before. As far as community outreach, we have referred 25 citizens to obtain grant programs through the Community Development Division. We asked 12 churches and volunteer groups to provide assistance to citizens we saw in need. We gave 9 presentations to community groups like Neighborhood Watch, the Landlord Association, and that type of thing. The Harrison Point Neighborhood Watch actually took it upon themselves to cut grass at vacant lots in vacant homes in their neighborhood, just to have ownership of their neighborhood, and in turn save taxpayers and us time and energy on having to hire a contractor to do so. So that was a really cool thing that was appreciated. We've received many compliments and calls from residents who've actually clapped when we've arrived, and I have witnessed that. Owners have called to thank us for kind of pushing them to do their thing-to-do list. Sometimes it was wives with their husbands saying, "Thank you. I've been asking him to do that forever." But I've noticed an improved look on many homes and porches and homes that are painted and yards that are cleaned up, so I certainly hope you have noticed a difference too. Of course, which comes with this are negative feedback, and I know you've received emails and letters. And sometimes, unfortunately, the negative ones are louder than the positive ones that we hear. But we're doing our best to do a fair job, and I'm proud of what we've accomplished so far. So, our 2015 goals. We want to establish some type of a collection program, and it is never our intent to fund the unit with the money received. As you can see, that would not happen. We want to reach out to more community groups and try to get more assistance for citizens. We want to increase blight awareness and do like a media blitz so people are more aware of what's allowed and what's not. We want to increase the calls generated by City of Port Huron staff. We got a lot of eyes and ears out there. We could, I think we call in a good amount of stuff right now, but that obviously could go up. And I want to reduce the need for tickets issued in grass cuts that the city has to do. And hopefully, usually you come up here and you want to have higher numbers next year, but I actually want to have lower numbers in 2014, so we don't have to hit this with such a vengeance like we did this year. Any questions?
Thank you. It's a good job. Thank you. Is there anyone on council who has any questions or comments?
Mayor Rep.
Yes,
I
Councilmember
too
Ashley.
I
Go
beg your
ahead.
pardon?
No, go ahead.
I too would like to commend you and the code enforcement. I know a lot of people had a lot of angst about it, and this is just only proof that, if we allow it to go and see how it works out, and to our credit and everybody's, it's a win-win for both sides, the community and, what we're doing here as a city council. So with all this, it looks like it has been a success. And going forward, I think your target is on the collection piece. Is there any other tools that we as a council can give you to help make things any better for you?
And possibly, we're going to have a meeting and discuss that and
Okay.
try to see what different avenues we can take.
Okay.
But we may be coming to you.
The part of the collections is not meant to, obviously, she indicated to fund the unit, but you
Right.
have to have some type of teeth behind that fining process. Otherwise, they'll choose that process all the time, knowing that there is no outcome. So as property values are coming back a little bit, we could go back to single lot assessments, but there are other tools that we're investigating with Todd Schaudy that we're going to sit down and look at that after the first year, and then kind of pick and choose a couple cases that we think they can work, and then we'll see how they're processed. What I'm really concerned about is getting the impression, though, that we're switching this, the mindset of this program to that type of basis. It is not going to be, we will stick with that ticket or fix it. We would much rather have people fix or clean up their property than ever have to issue them a ticket, let alone have a fine.
Right.
And many times, these fines are waived by the hearing officers. Once the people complied and they get there, the hearing officer says, you did what you had to do, and, you know, the people ask the hearing officer, and they waive the fine. So I want to make sure that people understand that that won't be our focus. We'll continue to focus. And these pictures, it really says it all.
Right.
What's not shown in the one picture is that there's an overturned car in the front of the house that they were scrapping out piece by piece. We couldn't get that in the photo, but as you see, the difference from is really night and day. And that's the type of thing we're trying to really achieve, because it does dramatically affect neighborhood home values when you have to live next to a home that has a blight problem.
Okay.
So we'll come back to you, though, if we need something, but right now we have, I think, all the resources we need. We have to just keep with it with the community.
Okay, and just lastly, Mayor Rep, and just either one of you could answer, like when you go through these kind of programs and everything, you think at the end of the day, is there something about this program that keeps you up at night? Is there something that just isn't working right? I mean, you know, nothing is perfect, but is there something that
Yeah, I think
that you weren't able to achieve or?
It's taken us all of 2014 just to get the system in a computer program that really isn't supposed to support a court and ticket-based system like this. So it's been quite a feat on behalf of my secretary, Trudy Lewis, who just happens to know the computer software program very well, and she's managed to find a way to do that. So the documentation and being able to recall the information and statistically gather it has been very challenging so far.
Oh, okay.
But we're there. We reached
Good luck
it.
with it. Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, and thank you, too,
Yes,
Chief.
sir.
Thank you, Mayor Rep.
Mayor Rep?
Yes, Councilmember Ruiz.
Question, does it look like you'll have the same staff coming back for this? 2015?
Yes.
No changeover.
No change, no.
I was impressed in hearing some of the backgrounds of people we have on staff, that they come from backgrounds where they deal with people and have, it's obviously paying off, and did a good job informing that staff, and my compliments to them as well.
Absolutely, yeah. They're a smart crew, so it's nice to just have them hit the ground running, and they're out there working hard every day.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, Councilmember Lewandowski.
I know, Chief and Lieutenant, you kind of hit on a little bit about the single lot assessments. For something like a grass clipping or grass cutting, you can put that onto their tax roll then, I'm assuming?
We have in the past, we can continue to do that. The problem is until the value's there and the property's sold, you don't get that money back.
Yeah, I understand. I just, when the city's putting that kind of money out, I'd like to see those go on there, because at some point you're going to recoup it, with interest too, at some point.
Right.
Well,
And
the
as
county will get the interest.
we go forward, we ask the hearing officers to include the cost of the cleanup in their fine or something of that nature. So I think the garnishment's an interesting concept. We would use it on a very limited basis. I think that the thought process is if people know that that tool is available, don't let it get to that point, and take care of the lawn before we have to cut it. It does no good after the fact to argue how much it cost us to cut the lawn. That's after the fact. It doesn't cost you anything but a tank of gas and your time to take care of it before we have to handle it. So we'll sit down and we'll talk about that, but we're really going to push through. Do it yourself so we don't have to do it and expend those funds.
I agree. Thank you.
Yes, Councilmember Kroll.
I just wanted to personally say thank you to Lieutenant Kuhn and Chief Reeves, especially since this the result has been compliance. I think that really speaks to what the unit is doing and how much they're teaming with people in the community. And I think that was the goal from the beginning, and I'm just really excited to see that's happening because the goal is cleaning up the neighborhoods and making it just more desirable for everybody. And like Chief Reeves was saying, not so much on the ticket and the fine, but that it's fixed. And I'm just so excited to see this from the start, from a citizen recommending an idea to coming all the way to fruition and it really working. So thank you. That's just worlds of credit to you and your team.
Thank you.
Yes,
I
Councilmember
guess I'd
Harris.
just like to comment, we developed this process basically on up or down voting, and I see that you're planning on some tweaking a little bit, and I know I'd be interested, and I think the rest of the council members would be interested, because it's like everything else, nothing's perfect, and I think we can sit down and have a good conversation.
Anyone else? Again, thank you. You've done a really great job with putting this in, and I know it's been really probably a little stressful for the first year. So I wish you many successes in the second year.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll move on now to public comment. If there's anyone in the audience who wishes to come forward, if they'd like to come to the podium, give us your name, and you have 4 minutes.
Well, hopefully I won't use the 4 minutes. I'm Juanita Gettings. I'm a resident of the city of Port Huron, and I wear a number of hats. But this evening, I'm here as the chair of the museum's board, Port Huron Museum of Arts and History. And we have a resolution that comes up, I think it's number 7, on your agenda this evening. With me is Susan Bennett, who's right here, who is our executive director. We're here to answer any questions you might have about the resolution, and we have also provided a package of information for you which talks about the collections process, deaccessioning, which I had to learn when I got involved with the museum, and accessioning, which is basically accepting and then also deciding what to do with an artifact or some possession that no longer is either useful, for example, may be broken. It may not be timely. It may, in fact, not be something that belongs here in St. Clair County or in Port Huron. It may have nothing to do with us, and we try to be good stewards and find the right homes for the artifacts we have. But we're here to answer any questions you might have, and I'd just like to thank James and Mayor Repp and Councilperson Ruiz. We have had several meetings. I anticipate we'll have more. But as we redefine the relationship between the city of Port Huron and the museum, which has been a very long one, I think it's good that we're able to communicate and able to just share our issues, share our concerns, but also then share the successes that I think that we've all had. So we're here if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to address the City Council this evening?
Hello again. Robert Grattan, as you all know. I need to read this because every time I come up here, I'm nervous. I never read it, so this time I want to read it and make sure I get everything right. First, I want to congratulate the city. You won the first round. I was fined $100 in the district court for having a canopy over my boat. But did you really win? You make a law banning all canopies in the city, the temporary ones for over lawn furniture, tarps and shelters, but you only enforce the shelters that look like temporary garages. You don't even enforce them equally. One person, a couple of people actually, I talked to was told they had theirs down the first week of September. It is still up and they have never received a citation. A member of the city council also had one up and was never told to take it down or has received a citation. Every city council meeting, we say the Pledge of Allegiance. The last line is with liberty and justice for all. The city ordinances are slowly taking away our liberties and what we can and can't have in our own backyards. Where is the justice? You make all canopies illegal, but only enforce the rule on some. The one over lawn furniture for shelters, you completely ignore. No reason why. Obviously, to me, this Pledge of Allegiance to the City Council has no meaning whatsoever. There is no justice in this city. Well, now my appeal is with the Circuit Court, and if I lose there, I will go to the State Supreme Court with this. You want to pick a fight, you've got one. I don't understand. My shelter over my boat was just so I could fix it temporarily, and then get my boat ready for the season so I could make money with the job. It's frustrating, very frustrating. Just like the chief of police, when he tried to tell the state police sergeant I couldn't have, that he didn't want my bombs that I found in Lake St. Clair in the city. Trying to take away my rights. But he failed. I still had the bombs. Same thing with the chief of police for West Bloomfield when I found a gun. They tried to destroy, they said they were going to destroy it. It was my right to have it. I've got it. The laws are for everyone. You pick and choose people to prosecute. You prosecuted me while you're prosecuting the wrong person because I'm fighting as far as I have to. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grattan. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to address the City Council?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Wanted to introduce myself. My name is Kim Appel. I work for SMG, who is the management company that oversees McMorran Place as well as the new convention center. And I just wanted to put a name to a face for everyone. And if anyone's looking for a wedding space or a reception space, please give me a call. Got plenty of space to rent. And anyone have any questions?
Anyone on council have any questions?
I met with Kim earlier in the week and asked her to come to introduce herself. We're very excited about having Kim working with McMorran. She has a lot of experience from South Bend, Indiana, correct, if I can remember correctly. Working with the facility down there, her expertise, her collaboration with SMG should open McMorran up to new markets and essentially get our names out there in areas in which we were lacking before. McMorran is a diamond in the rough for the community, and hopefully you can polish it up for us.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, Kim, for coming tonight. Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to address the City Council this evening? Seeing no one, I will declare public comment closed, and we'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Mayor Pro Tem Archibald, is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember Harris. If the clerk would please take the roll.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Cole?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Lewandowski?
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz?
Yes.
Mayor Rapp?
Yes, we had a couple of public hearings scheduled, one for February the 9th to hear comments concerning liquor licensees delinquent in payment of taxes, utility payments, and/or income tax reporting or payments, and January 26th to receive comments on the general needs in the community development, housing, and special services utilizing CDBG and home funds, and a second public hearing for February 23rd to hear comments on a proposed 5-year consolidated plan for 2015 through 19 and a 1-year 2015 annual action plan, and confirm the reappointments of David Haynes, Michael Rosso, and Len Sikori to the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority for terms to expire April 14th, 2017. And those are the items under the consent agenda. We will move on to, from the city manager, number 1.
Accepting the bid from Sanctum Contracting in the amount of $70,442.27 for the Municipal Office Center back deck repair project.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Mayor Pro Tem Archibald, is there a second?
That was me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Boy,
I'll second.
you'll second. There you go. Councilmember Cole, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Archibald. Sometimes you cannot tell unless you're looking. Is there discussion?
Mayor,
Yes, Councilmember
I guess
Harris.
my comment is not whether we want to fix it. I'm just wondering, looking at it and see what the use of it is generally during the day, is do we even want to have it? Personally, I couldn't vote to fix it up. I would vote to remove it, but.
If I could respond to that.
Yes, please.
Councilman Harris, you're absolutely correct. The use for that facility out there is just not there. What the $70,000 includes is removal of a major, all that you can see out the window right now, that will be removed. It will be just a 10-foot walk around the back end of the building. We will keep a partial, small portion of it near the parking lot, but the vast majority will be removed. There's also a section which is above our underground facility. That actually needs to be repaired. We'll concrete over that. That's a drainage issue into the storage facilities and offices that are down there. But you are correct. This is not to rebuild everything that's there. It's to essentially remove a good portion of it. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, it'd been nice to have that before this evening.
Where it says Riverside Patio, that is above an underground facility, and that has to be concrete. Because I asked, why couldn't we do that grass too? Because we don't need it, but that is a maintenance issue. So you are correct, we'll be removing a large portion of it.
Is that the conceptual plan?
Yes. And the issue we have right now in its current state is, I'm not worried about the aesthetics of it, I'm worried about the liability of it. It's a trip and fall issue. I think we've had a trip and fall issue out there. That's why it's barricaded off now. And so to leave it would be neglectful because it's so readily available to the public from the river walk and the parking lot.
And why are we spending the money to add the extra sidewalk then? That's not there. And that's not there right now, is
There's
it?
an engineering answer to that.
Mayor Rep and council members, we have emergency exits from this room. It's located right there and right there. You have to have a hard surface outside your emergency exit, and so that'll be an ADA accessible walkway that'll go around the building to assure that there's safe exit. The other thing we do see the public doing is they'll come along the railing on the extreme south side. That's why we put the concrete there, to get visual access to look at the water. We're going to make that ADA accessible again, so if someone was in a chair, they could go out there and look at the river without having to, because we have ADA accessible parking on the deck, it'd give them a way to kind of overlook the river if they wish.
Do we have any other ADA accessible spots around City Hall that somebody could get down there? Because I guess I wasn't going to vote no till you said that, and then.
Well, we have a couple of parking spots in the south area for that, but one would have to go quite a ways, and they wouldn't have quite the vantage point that you would have.
They couldn't get to the boardwalk any other way.
Yeah, they would be on the
You
boardwalk.
just convinced me that I was going to vote no, but, all right, thank you.
So that's why it's incorporated the way it is. We also notice that children like to play on the hill, and by eliminating that, there's a raised concrete piece that would connect the part of the deck that is over roof to this other wall. That is currently a raised concrete piece, and we notice the kids tend to trip over that. So we're going to eliminate that and roll it into the hill, and make it a lot more comfortable for people to come up from the Riverwalk onto the area and back down and so on. Make it safer all the way around.
Will that still be accessible for public smoking?
No, public smoking has now signed and is at the base of on the downhill side. If you look in that photograph, there's a wall. You see the wall there? South of the area we're working on. And that sidewalk down there is where designated smoking is.
Can you speak to the drain that will be repaired as well? That was an alternative to that bid.
Yes. On the front, you were speaking about the one in the front,
Yeah.
James? Yeah.
Real quick, there was an alternate, we had a drain issue, and
On the
rather
front
than
patio.
independently bid that out, we threw it in with this as an alternate, and we got the price, I think it was like $900.
Yeah, it's an excellent price.
Cheapest way to do it would be to have the firm that got this project fix that drain while we're at it. So-
We have one location in the front where we have a ponding problem. We were able to get rid of the rest the last time we did work up there, but we got one still remaining, and we had an excellent price to take care of that with this project.
More concerning about icing in the wintertime, slip and fall issues.
It seems like a lot of money for some concrete, I guess.
Yeah, especially the work over that roof it's significant work. And as you can see, it's still a very competitive price compared to the other bidders.
Is that the mechanics garage that's?
But down there, yeah, there's a mechanical room. Our staff who maintain the building have some workspace in there. They can repair equipment. But there's also mechanical equipment. There's equipment for the police garage area and the police work area, air handling equipment and so on.
Thank you. You're welcome. If there's no further discussion, we shall take the vote.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Cole?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
No.
Councilmember Lewandowski.
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz.
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald.
Yes.
Mayor Rett.
Yes. We'll move on to resolution number 1.
Is authorizing 7 payments.
Is there a motion?
So move.
Councilmember Ashford, is there a second? Support. Mayor Pro Tem Archibald, is there discussion? We'll take the vote.
Councilmember Cole.
Yes.
Councilmember Harris.
Yes.
Councilmember Lewandowski.
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz.
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald.
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford.
Yes.
Mayor Rett.
Yes. Number 2,
Is adopting a fund balance policy for government funds.
is there a motion?
So moved.
Mayor Pro Tem Archibald, is there a second?
Support?
Councilmember Cole. Before I ask for questions, I wonder if you would just explain this a little
Yep,
bit. as to-
absolutely. Mayor and council, before you have a fund balance policy. This is a product of reviewing the current city finances, our bond rating. The finance director and I met with Standard & Poor's in Chicago in November, and one of the things that they were concerned about is that we did not have a fund balance policy that was actually written out. And most communities have adopted them. It's recommended to have one. The policy before you, we currently are abiding by. Our fund balance is slightly under 25%. We believe within the next 24 to 36 months we will meet the 25% threshold. As the auditors informed us in the last meeting, our fund balance increased by about 2.1%. Is that correct? 2.1% in the last fiscal year? Thereabouts. This essentially puts guideposts in place, and it lets the public, but just as importantly, it lets the bond agencies know what our budgeting policy is, meaning we will keep a certain level reserved to ensure we have money to operate in case something were to happen. And 25% is a good target number, which most municipalities are aiming for. So really, this would provide nothing new. It wouldn't really change anything we're doing. It would just formalize our current budgeting processes in a paper trail that we can present to the bond agencies as not only are we striving for this, but it's council directed. And so having something voted on by the mayor and council formally directs myself and the department heads to strive for this. This is a policy that would be adopted by council, and it does have an emergency clause, so if something happens and we need to use our fund balance for an emergency situation, that does provide you the ability to do that. And it has been reviewed by our legal counsel.
Mayor Rett.
Yes, Councilmember Ashford.
So this is giving you or the administration to manage these different funds? Up in
No,
front
we currently do that. It articulates what we mean by certain words, meaning committed fund, assigned. When you guys vote on something, you've committed it. Restricted means it's reserved for a project. Essentially, this formalizes what it means when the council
So this is
acts.
like, not to cut you off, discretionary and
Yeah.
that kind of, oh, okay.
Yeah,
All right.
but it also says, the most important part is it says, for the general fund, the budget shall be prepared and activities managed to result in an ending unassigned fund balance of at least 25% of the adopted expenditures. And that essentially sets a threshold of what our fund balance will be, and it shows a healthy amount, a conservative amount that the bond agencies like to see. And so this is the first step. I will bring you a debt policy at the next meeting. There's a few minor questions we're trying to clarify on that. But this is, again, an attempt to get our bond rating up. And it's stuff we're already doing, just need to formalize what we're doing. So really, nothing will change.
So just one more thing, Mayor Rett.
Yes,
Yeah,
Councilmember.
So when we have this policy and we're trying to get this in place to look good for our bond rating, is this more so to protect us in?
Well, I think it sends a message that there's guideposts in how we budget. And we recognize that there's certain levels of reserves that should be there for a healthy, conservative approach. That's what this is doing. It's sending a message that there are guideposts in place when we budget.
So we're just assuring them that we are being prudent.
Yes.
Okay.
Mayor Rep,
Yes, Councilmember Lewandowski.
I'm going to be voting no on this tonight. One, for the simple fact that it wasn't brought and talked about to council before tonight. I didn't have a chance to review it because there wasn't nothing much in the notes about it. And two, I can see it as sometime in the future a reason, or being used as a reason to increase water rates, because we have to maintain such a fund balance because of a written policy that we have now. That, there's something where we couldn't borrow from the general fund or something. I'm not sure exactly how this whole thing worked because I haven't had a chance to been briefed on it, I guess, so.
It would
I'm-
just refer to the general fund, not the utilities. It's just general fund dollars.
Take money out of the general fund to help offset the utilities, right?
Not anymore.
Not anymore, but we could in the future if we had to. But if we didn't have enough fund balance, we would be limited from doing that, right?
This would
According to
this would
policy.
restrict you unless you overrode this, yeah. The council would have to override it.
I'm voting no on it.
But the council could override it.
Yes.
I don't have a problem with you wanting to keep a fund balance, but I'm not putting it set in stone, because I could see that being an issue to raise rates, whether it's in utilities or something else down the road, that I'm just not going to do that.
Mayor Rep?
Yes.
My question is a good follow-up to that one, which would be, what is our anticipated timeframe that we would bring our fund balance up to the 25%? And do you have a plan, or will you be bringing us one, on how we're going to do that without cutting or raising rates to taxpayers?
Yeah, one, it will not require rate increases of what's currently already been done, because we will not be utilizing the general fund to balance the utilities. The deficit reduction plan, the $500,000 in savings you adopted this summer, if we maintain that over the course of the next 24 to 36 months, we should meet this goal with no problem.
Thank you.
So what I don't want is, this is not some arbitrary number that we would use to justify cuts in public safety, parks and recreation, or something like that. This is just a guidepost that we will strive to maintain 25% of previous year's expenses.
But it would require us to override it in a vote, so that it sounds, there's a mixed message. I'm missing it, I guess.
This is by the budgeting guidelines. So when we develop a budget, we will strive to ensure we maintain 25%. We're not,
Guidepost, you said.
yeah, we will not be using fund balance to operate. We will not be using fund balance to the degree that would, lessen us in 25%. It'll be the goal to maintain a 25% fund balance. It provides a guidepost in budget development.
And if we don't achieve it,
We won't achieve it this year, and we most likely won't achieve it next year. It'll be what we're striving for.
did I hear not language about requiring a vote? I mean, so if we don't achieve it, it just serves as a guidepost,
Yeah, pretty much.
not a lock-in of anything.
Pretty much, yeah. And it's pretty much setting a
Pretty
goal.
much. Is
It's-
it-
Yeah,
is it or is it not?
It is. We're setting a goal that we will try to reach.
Okay.
And it tells the bond agencies this is a goal we're trying to reach. It's not an ordinance, so it doesn't have the authority of an ordinance. So the council would put the goal in place, but the council has authority to take it out. But it's a statement that this is a goal.
Assuming that the council has the votes to take it out when they need to. If sometimes some money needed to be pulled out of that, and assuming the council didn't have an issue with raising water rates and said, I'd rather raise the water rates and pull money out of the general fund so we can keep our 25%.
That would be a discussion the council would have to have. But I do not anticipate tapping the general fund for utilities. I think that would be a dangerous signal to our bond agencies.
Time it so it's not an election year.
Mayor Rep?
Yes.
Just a question for Mr. Freed. I guess if we're looking at this and we know that we're not going to hit the 25% mark this year or next year, is there any reason we should be including a date that this would be effective by? I mean, it says 25% now, so that means for the budget we're preparing right now.
It's the goal. The reason why I don't want to put a date, again, I don't want to tie the hands of the council to, we're not going to be cutting services to meet this goal this year, but it is something we're going to be working towards as we develop our budgets. We should be increasing our fund balance by 2 to 3% annually until we meet this goal. And that's what we will do in this budget development. And the budget I bring you this spring, it will work towards that. But again, this is setting the goal. And you can change this to 20% if you want. I mean, the number's there, but you can change this.
So it's just up to council to know that when you bring us a budget in the spring, we might not be looking at 25%, it might be 22%.
But yeah, but we're trying.
But we're trying
But what I'm not going to do is make this an arbitrary number that we start cutting just to make this number in the next couple of years. But this is a goal.
Any other questions or comments?
I guess one other one, Mayor Rep.
Yes, Councilmember Lee.
When are our next union contracts up?
About 3 years from now.
Okay. I could see that at some point being used against the unions and the contracts as going, hey, we got to maintain this balance. We can't afford to give you a raise either.
It does say at least 25%. Does it have to say at least? Can't it say just the 25%? At least implies it could be 30%.
Well, you could have a fund balance of 30%.
Okay, so you're
That's your minimum. That's your minimum.
that you're
Yeah.
striving
For instance, in the previous city I worked at, the council had adopted a policy that no less than 30%, but no more than 50%. So we will not have this issue, but some communities run such large surpluses they start banking money, and that's really not the role of government. And then some communities have a spending problem where they don't even have money to pay payroll until taxes come in. And then, with our 25%, that allows us the ability where we don't take out loans from the bank to operate. We have enough capital in the bank, we can operate until taxes come in. I think we have about a 4-month operating in the bank, 3 to 4 months of operating capital in the bank, depending on the time of year.
And where are we at right now?
About 22, 23%.
Yeah, that's overall. Our unassigned is around 20.
Okay. Any other questions from council?
What's our history with fund balance in, let's say, the last 5 years or so?
Ed, do you want to speak to that? I can speak to this year. You've increased about 2%. Last year, you increased a little bit less than that. But this is coming out of an economic recession.
Right.
During the times of the good years, we were running pretty decent surpluses. Ed can probably speak to the rest.
Right, we have been running, I can't remember the last time we didn't run some sort of a surplus. Some of them have been quite small. The last one was about $92,000. So that was quite a bit over the prior year, might have been $12,000 or something like that. But what this is, as James said, is the bond, Standard & Poor's had indicated that we might have an informal goal to have a fund balance at a certain amount, but reducing it to writing and stating that it was a formal goal in their matrix and the way they rate you, that is, a plus for us. So that's part of the reason we're putting this forward.
When Ed and I were taking our grilling from S&P, one of the first things they asked us is, do you have a fund balance policy? And I replied, well, we strive between 20 and 25%. And they go, well, do you have a written policy that states that's your goal? And I said, no. And they go, then it's essentially whatever you tell us your goal is until the mayor and council state this is a goal, then it's, so what?
Right.
And the next thing was a debt policy and how we will issue debt. And so they look for it, and Ed telling them, well, we strive for 20 to 25% of fund balance. Ed and I don't set goals. You guys do. So words out of my mouth mean nothing. They want to see a document that the council and mayor have said this is our goal. Because you are the elected officials, you have the authority, not us.
Okay, thank you. There's no other discussion. We will take the vote.
Councilmember Harris?
No.
Councilmember Lewandowski?
No.
Councilmember Ruiz?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Cole?
Yes.
Mayor Rep?
Yes. We'll move on to item 3.
Is approving the multi-year agreement with Tetra Tech Incorporated for professional surveying and inspection services work.
Is there a motion?
So move.
Councilmember Ashford, is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember Ruiz, is there discussion?
Mayor Rep,
Yes, Councilmember Harris.
just a comment. It's traditionally, I've kind of been against these multi-year agreements. We don't have an ending to them, and that would be probably the only issue I would have with this proposal is, it's projected at 3 years, but are we going to get it done in 3 years?
I would just like to respond to that we bid it out for 3 years, but they only do the work the first year. They cannot start in the second year until the council approves the work and appropriates the money. Is that correct? So it's a 3-year contract, but they only do one project at a time.
Almost like paying the bills.
Mayor and Council, we've been utilizing 3-year agreements for engineering technical services since 2005. And since 2002, we've reduced our engineering staff by 42%. And so what we've done is we've evaluated what things are best done in-house economically, what size staffing we need economically. And so, in order to provide services to the community and to implement the programs the councils have asked us to do, we then need to have fill-in help for our staff. One of the major items is surveying capabilities. We don't have that in-house. And so we have traditionally in each year every 3 years brought you an agreement for those services, surveying, CAD, and inspection services. And I think our current staffing is appropriate. It's well laid out as far as cost effectiveness for the level of work we're currently doing. And, but this is necessary to keep our in-house staff functioning and functioning well. They're kind of partners, if you will, with technical assistance.
By bidding out in 3 years, you do get a better rate, correct?
Yes. What happens is you're asking a firm to tie up a certain number of their staff. There's no guarantee. In these particular agreements, unlike other agreements that you approve for these services, there isn't a fixed amount. It's an hourly rate. This year we may use them for 200 hours, and next year we may use them for 10 hours. It's totally on demand. And you're asking firms to commit to a cost, to tie up staff when you need them. So by doing multi-years, we get a much better rate at quote rates because they know that they have to be available on our demand. If our current one in-house inspector becomes ill and is unavailable, we call them up, and the next day they have to get someone out there to do inspection. That's a heck of a service to be provided to us.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but this contract will correspond with your budget, meaning you have budgeted for this.
Yes, yes. And this is an as-needed service, so if the council didn't approve any projects, we wouldn't be spending any of this money because it's as needed.
Thank you. Is there any other questions for Mr. Clegg? Eyes up there? Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
If there's no other discussion, we will take the vote.
Councilmember Lewandowski.
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz.
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald.
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford.
Yes.
Councilmember Cole.
Yes.
Councilmember Harris.
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. We'll move on to item 4.
Is approving the multi-year agreement with Rowe Professional Services Company for professional engineering services for the pump station and metering equipment upgrades.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Mayor Pro Tem Archibald, is there a second?
Support.
Councilmember Ashford, is there discussion?
Mayor Rep,
Yes, Councilmember Harris.
I guess just one question here. I looked at the information on this, and the only thing that I had questioned was the $1,000 per hour for the subcontractor. And I didn't know if that was a misprint or not. That seems like a huge number.
Mayor Rep and council members, it is a large number, and it's very little effort. What we need is the firm who's going to do the work recognized that there's one area of expertise they don't have, and it's regarding communication, remote communication from these sites, so they have to go to an outside vendor to get that assistance, and it's very little amount of effort from a time standpoint, but they need outside expertise. And I don't believe it's $1,000 an hour. I think it's $1,000 lump sum. Is that correct?
Yeah, I see that.
Represented in the chart is $1,000 an hour for subcontracting.
Let me take a look at
The
that.
hourly
I thought
scale.
that was
Hourly.
$1,000 lump sum.
Might just be.
Let me just double check. I could be incorrect.
Okay.
It just says $1,000. It doesn't say whether or not it's, everything
That's-
else is
that's-
hourly, but it
right.
doesn't state it.
Yeah, and I apologize. I could understand how one would be confused by that, but I think that's a lump sum cost.
Yeah,
was
because
kind of-
everything else is per hour, but that one
Yes, it
doesn't
is.
say otherwise.
And I certainly respect how someone would be confused by that, with everything being by the hour, but in that particular case, I think it's a lump sum.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or discussion?
Mayor Rapp?
Yes. Mayor Pro Tem
I would
Archibald.
question, should we have this changed before we enter into this agreement? So that somebody can't come back later and say, well, you said you'd pay me $1,000 an hour?
Well, counsel, the included in the agreement is a reference to the original proposal, and the original proposal is clear. Certainly, you're welcome to make an edit to the agreement. I'm not suggesting council can't make edits. You certainly can. But I'm just saying that it is tied to the original proposal, which would lay out the terms. And there's an amount there.
I would like to see it edited to say that this is a lump sum, not an hourly, please.
I'd support that.
We can just change the agreement, and when we are signing it, all sides will sign it to put that it's a lump sum
In the actual
in
agreement.
the actual agreement.
But we probably can, just for clarification purposes, include that as part of the original motion, if that's
Yep.
okay with the movers in the second of the first of the motion. And we'll include that as part of that. That change will be made. Then we can do it on the contract. Is there any other discussion? We'll take the vote.
Councilmember Ruiz?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Cole?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Lewandowski?
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes, we'll move on to item 5.
Is authorizing the city manager to enter into an executive search agreement with the Michigan Municipal League to assist with selecting the next city engineer/director of public works.
Is there a motion?
So move.
Councilmember Ashford, is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember Cole, is there discussion?
Before we start, the position of DPW director is perhaps one of the most critical positions within our city operations, and it is extremely technical, and the certifications required are significant. We could post this job ourselves and do our best in promoting it, but the caliber of talent we're looking for, they rely on the Michigan Municipal League. They do an excellent job of reaching out to people who are in the field. We do not have a lead internal candidate. This is not some exercise. At the end of the day, we'll come back and, all whole time we had an internal candidate. We do not have a lead internal candidate. And we will look internally and externally, but there is no lead person I have in mind. And so the reason why we would like to partner with the Michigan Municipal League is they have the clout within the profession to reach out to people who may not be looking for a job. I like the idea of someone who's not looking for a job, getting them, because they don't need a job, they're doing a good job where they're at. We want to reach those people. And it signifies to professional engineers across the state that we take this position seriously, that we treat this as an executive level position, and we recognize the importance, and that's why we go to great detail of the backgrounds, ensuring that the relationships that the Michigan Municipal League have, they can check up on someone, say, hey, you know this person, they've been in this city for how long, how are they doing? And they also have a pool of candidates, people they know who could be potential people. And they have a much larger reach than we do, not only in Michigan, but engineers across the country who look at the Michigan Municipal League's website. So that is why I'm proposing that. Again, this will be one of the most significant hires we make. Bob does a tremendous job, but the job is incredibly complex. I remind people that it's $30 million utility operations, plus you have your public works, your streets. There's a lot there. And so to get the right person is key. $9,900 sounds like a lot of money, but I assure you making a bad hire and not getting the right person in this job will cost much more. And so I want to make sure we reach the furthest to find the best talent.
Is there any questions or discussion from
Mayor?
council? Yes, Councilmember
City
Ruiz.
Manager, if we're saying we have no lead candidates presently, but there is that possibility of hiring someone from within?
I'm not ruling it out. I'm not ruling out. I'm telling you there's no lead candidate. I'm sure we'll have applicants. I have to believe that somebody internally will apply, but I'm telling you I don't have a lead candidate. If you're asking me, do I anticipate we'll be looking outward for this? Yes.
It also could read into the, no. Okay, thank you.
Mayor Rep,
Yes, Councilmember Lewandowski.
I guess, we pay our human resource director a pretty tidy sum of money, and she's fairly good at her job. Why don't we just post it on the MML website and let Bob and Julie go ahead and yourself and whoever else you get involved on it, do the interviews and save $9,000.
You're absolutely correct, but the concern I have is the search consultants who work for the Michigan Municipal League, they go to the professional conventions, they go to the engineering conventions, they go to the capital conventions. They have the relationships with the talent, and they can advocate on our behalf. Meaning, when you contracted out the Michigan Municipal League for their city manager search, I didn't even know you guys were looking for, I wasn't checking the MML website every day. I didn't even know you guys were looking for a city manager. It wasn't until a search executive called me and said, hey, this is coming up, you should look at it. I didn't even know you were posting. And so having someone at the league who knows the engineers who are good and knows who you should be looking at, calling and making those, it speaks a lot for Port Huron that the Michigan Municipal League is calling saying this is, a stable community, a stable mayor and council, stable financially, good place to go, you should look at it. It's advocating on behalf of Port Huron, and that's what they're great at.
We hope they believe that, but we don't know that. What kind of guarantee do you have that they're out doing that? Do you get some kind of feedback from them as, hey, I made this many contacts with?
Yeah, yep, direct mails as well, yep.
I would like to see a copy of that then, because I said, I never seen any of those when we did them for you, or I said, we never, that they reached out to somebody, maybe not the name on it, but they never gave us anything like that to prove that they were actually being worth the money spent on. I don't have an issue using them, because I agree with you, they are some of the experts in the field, but I want some kind of proof that they're actually out doing something and looking for people if we're going to spend that kind of money. Now, I said, I know who you're probably thinking that might apply from inside. And I said, I don't know if he's capable or not, but I don't have an issue if you hire somebody from the inside, but I hate to spend $10,000 knowing that that's the case, that you got somebody that's capable inside of doing it, and we're going to go out and spend the money and still hire the person from inside. So,
I think whether we have qualified internal candidates or not, we owe it to look at everybody and get the best caliber of talent. And we don't know that until we do an active search, an aggressive search. And so, it would be unfair of me to say we're not going to hire internally, because that would discredit the people who may apply internally. I don't know that. What I do know is we need to look at every single option and reach the furthest to reach the most talent in the state or across the country. And I want to look at every option before I fill this position, because it's that important.
and I don't disagree with you, but if you have somebody who and we all know what we're talking about, is going to probably apply for it, why not talk to him first and see if you guys feel comfortable with him before you go spend the $10,000? If it's somebody, they say, hey, we're not sure this is going to work. And talk to him first and see, if he's going to apply or not. And then if not, and if you guys feel comfortable hiring him, hire him. But if not, then go out and spend the $10,000.
I'm confident you would believe I would have had that conversation before this tonight. So that conversation did take place.
I haven't been updated on much of it lately.
Yeah,
so,
that conversation, that conversation did take place, and that's about all I can say for that right now. But that conversation did take place.
All right.
Anyone else have any?
Mayor Rep.
Yes, Councilmember
I just wanted to
Harris.
say I have the complete confidence in that Mr. Clegg has the expertise to assist us in finding a candidate and hiring a candidate. And I know Mr. Freed is the one that hires him, but I think Mr. Clegg would be a valuable in-source prior to using the Michigan Municipal League. And I guess on that fact, and I think we got a good IT, or human resources. So I'm kind of leaning like Alan. I don't know how Alan's going to vote, but I kind of leave it up to internally. Thank you.
Mayor Rep.
Councilmember Ruiz.
How was Mr. Clegg secured and brought to Port Huron? Was it?
Search firm.
It was a long process.
Very long, I do remember that.
I was actually recruited twice for this job.
Okay.
Both times by professionals, headhunters.
Okay.
And I was not looking for a job. I was very secure in my current position, was very happy where I was, had no interest in looking anywhere. They reached out to me once. I think it took the city a year and a half approximately to fill the position. They reached out to me a second time, and the second time I agreed to talk to them.
Am I putting you in an awkward position if I ask you if you think this is a good move? Using Michigan Municipal League?
I think it is a good move to, with all due respect, and thank you for your trust in me, I still have a job to do. And I wouldn't, I think, be able to give the kind of time, nor do I have the expertise to recruit people. I certainly will help any way I can to evaluate those that are considered, but I don't have the time to do it.
Thank you.
And I think an expert, someone who's an expert in that field, especially my experiences, I volunteered for a great number of committees at MML. I've done a significant amount of volunteer hours, and I've seen the way they interact with other professionals, and I'm quite impressed with who they know and where they know them. And I've learned a great deal attending professional meetings organized by the MML and having other professionals from my area of expertise in the room and having an opportunity to meet them, talk with them, share comments. It's been very valuable.
Thanks, Bob.
I will say, Julie and Bob and I have had numerous discussions, and I've told Bob, your last big project will be helping me find your replacement, because the job is so technical and so industry specific that Bob is one of the few people in this room that will know exactly who can do it and who can't, probably better than I do. And so I will rely heavily on his judgment. He will sit on the interviews, and I guess, Alan, I want to provide clarity. I had conversations. I did a quick glance internally. After my conversations, a quick glance, I still don't have a lead candidate. That's why I'm bringing this to you. If that provides a better answer. It's a very tricky question to answer.
I get you.
But I've had the conversations. I've done a quick glance internally. I don't think we have a lead candidate. I think we need to reach out to find this talent that we're looking for. I'm trying to do it in the most respectful way to our current employees.
Any other discussion? We'll take the vote.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Cole?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Lewandowski?
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz?
Yes.
Mayor Rep?
Yes. We'll move on to item 6.
Is approving the Second Amendment Agreement with Desmond Marine LLC to operate the River Street Marina through February 27th, 2018.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Archibald. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember Harris. Is there discussion?
I brought this before you tonight after evaluating the operations out there, speaking with the public. I think it's become clear that Desmond has done an excellent job of kind of turning around our marina operations. They've done an excellent job of promoting it. It's a cultural change out there, a more customer service-oriented culture change. Financially, they are splitting the profits with us, bringing in more revenue than before, probably because better customer service equals more usage. More people want to bring their boats here. Slip rentals are up. Fuel purchases are up. So we think 3 more years. They wanted, I think initially they talked about a 5-year, but after talking with legal counsel, the council seems like 3-year increments on stuff like this. And so that is why I brought a 3-year renewal for you, and then we can reevaluate in 3 years. I will tell you that we have access to audit their books every year to validate their expenditures and costs, part of our agreement, and so that is done.
There are no changes, basically?
No, there are no
It's just the same,
changes. To
it's
keep
just
status quo, continue for 3 more years, no changes.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Hey, Rep.
Yes, Councilmember Lewandowski.
I was on council when we first approved this, and I can say it looks like it's 1,000 times better run than it used to be. I'm happy with the agreement that we have and look forward to keep working with them.
I agree. Anyone else? We'll take the vote.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Cole?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Lewandowski?
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Mayor Rep?
Yes. We'll move on to item 7.
Is authorizing the sale of all art collections or other items donated, purchased by or stored at the Port Huron Museum for $1, and relinquishing all rights, title, and interest to these items or any items acquired or donated in the future.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Councilmember Ashford, is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember Ruiz, is there discussion?
They handed out a handout earlier tonight. I believe you have in here. We appreciate you guys putting that handout together. We have been meeting after the action plan was in place to find cost-saving measures. We wanted to meet with the museum. We've met 3 times. The mayor sits in on that, and I've asked Rico as well to sit in on that. We've met with their board numerous times. And I think first and foremost is the museum is a huge asset. You guys do an excellent job. You also do the light ship. You manage the lighthouse. the depot. These are community assets which are signature assets. They help define who we are. And one of the things that we've made very clear moving forward is we are not going to adversely affect the museum, our heritage, or our identity just to cut cost. And so we've tried to move forward very candidly in good faith, and the museum has been great to work with. We've met now, I think, 3 times. One of the things they're looking at is they have a large amount of storage, and they've become almost like a drop-off point. Anything old or looks old, you can just drop it off, whether or not there's any value to it. I think they told me they had some baskets with the dollar store tag still on them. And technically, all that, a large part of it is city-owned, meaning it comes to the city, it gets dumped off to them, and they really need to clean house because we don't know, do they have enough square footage? Do they have too much square footage? We don't know until they clear out the junk. And to be quite, I am not a art curator or a garage sale curator or a junk curator, and I don't know what's of value. And to be quite frank, we trust your judgment. You guys know that museum better than anyone, better than we do. And so we wanted to give them the ability to go through their assets, to go through the storage and get rid of things they don't need that's taking up space that we're paying to store, so we can have a real conversation about what space do they actually need. Do they need the entire Carnegie Center? Do they need a portion of it? We can't know that until we liquidate, correct? And so this essentially, in good faith, allows the museum to service the stewards and, as you see, clean out. They have assured me if they find a Vincent van Gogh worth $5 million,
You'll hear about it.
Yeah. You know, if Susan's on the Antique Roadshow and, you know, finds something worth $1 million, she will come back to us. But this allows them the, you know, and what I also want is I don't want people to think that we are doing this because we're going to start liquidating and make money. They're not going to make, I don't think you're going to make it, if anything, notable income off this. It's just to get rid of, we're storing, can I say we're storing just junk at this point? Old displays, exhibits?
A great deal of it is.
A great deal.
And I took those pictures last Thursday, and of the off-site storage, and I think you can see the depth of the collection, literally a box of rocks. Oh, should I have to go to the podium? I'm done.
No, well, just so people can hear you, that's all.
Yeah.
It is, if you're not on the mic, they can't pick it up in the end.
We, part of going forward, you know, we want to make sure that we want to look for a more sustainable way. Putting the museum as a part of our plan was for cost savings, but more importantly was for finding a sustainable way to make sure we protect these assets. And this is the first step. We got to figure out what the beast is we're dealing with. And right now, we need them to have the ability to use their professional judgment to go through. So that's all this is.
Any questions from council or discussion?
Mayor?
Councilmember Lewandowski.
You know, I have no issue with the museum getting rid of some of the stuff that they don't need anymore. My big issue, though, is at some point, I'm assuming they're going to be a separate entity from the city, is kind of the way it looks like it's going at some point, and getting rid of the title of the equipment that, or whatever you want to call it, equipment, material that remains there. I don't know if I'm comfortable with doing that so much as because at that point, then if Marysville offers them a free home in Marysville, they could move it up to that point or to Fort Gratiot.
I say this with 100% sincerity. I think Rico and Pauline and Susan, you guys, we really have the foggiest idea of how this is going to end up. I don't know if they'll become their own entity. I don't know if our partnership will change. I honestly, I think it's too early to say. I think that's, we went into the conversations with the museum board, the first conversation I had, we had no preconditions, no assumptions of what would happen at the end. And I honestly don't know if they would become their own entity. But that's something that at the time, everything's on the table, yeah.
I don't have an issue with passing this if there's some kind of amendment to it that says all assets have to stay in the city of Port Huron that remain from whatever they don't sell. I don't have that issue, or, you know, unless of loaning them out to some place, but.
Yeah,
If you want to come to the mic, just so we can.
Could you explain about some of the displays that you would maybe give back to the proper home if they didn't think, if you didn't have a use for them, but they thought maybe they'd be valued to someone else?
I think there's referenced in there, if you look, there was, when Edison Shores was built, if you can remember back, I have to remember when the old cement factory was there, and all of that went on.
No, I read
There
that.
was a lot of, there was a lot, just as an example of something that might go somewhere else, literally, as Susan said, we have boxes of rocks from the excavation. We're not sure, there's 30 boxes. Oakland County has the majority of the material that was taken out, so we would just, give that to them so they have the full collection.
Yeah, I got that part of it.
One of the things I would just point out, just to clarify, the dollar sale does not include the Edison Depot, which the city has title to, does not include the light ship, which the city has title to. Rather, this is sort of the stuff you see in boxes or on the walls and that sort of thing. The only thing I would say is in terms of guarantee whatever's left over after the sale, are we always going to be in the city of Port Huron? In my mind, the answer to that question is yes, but, life changes. One of the things we've done is we're trying to reach out, so we're trying to work with the county because we have the new conference center, which the county owns, and we're trying to work out, will they use the depot and thus bring more income into the, into the museum. At this point, the city is paying insurances, pays maintenance and so on at the facilities. The city does not give us a grant for any operating such as salaries and so on and so forth. But the city, and it's been a zillion years, owns the collection. The museum is a standalone nonprofit. There is also the McMorran collection. One of the things this will not do is any collection that has an additional proviso to it, like McMorran, where you have to get permission from the McMorran board, that would stand. Or if we have any donor-restricted gifts, whatever that restriction aside from the city is, that would stand. I think, to be honest with you, what we're trying to do is eliminate a bureaucratic process where when we would go to the city manager for small amounts of money, but everything, literally, if you sold something for $50 or you tried to deaccession it for nothing, the city had to be notified. I am happy that we would do a report for you on a regular basis, or, at the end of the process or over a certain dollar amount, whatever you wanted would be fine. To get to your longer term, that we'd always be here, I think that this is the logical place for it. I live in Port Huron. I happen to love Port Huron. But I'm not always going to be the chair of the board, I hope. Eventually someone else will do this, So if there's some sort of restriction like that you would like, I'm sure it's something we can work with. This is to facilitate a process so we can figure out, do we need something like the Carnegie? Do we need something, can we do something smaller? But we have a lot of off-site storage. We would just like to eliminate it. And is there something in there that really belongs on the wall in the Carnegie or someplace else, and we don't know it? And if anybody wants to take a tour of Watson Brothers warehouse with us, we'd be happy to show you what we've got there. But we just, we frankly don't think that there's much there, and we've given you some examples. But we haven't gone through everything, and that's part of what this process is going to allow us to do.
Did you have something specific in mind?
Well, I'm not going to vote for it unless we have some sort of assurance, because I said Juanita won't be there forever. At some point, say Marysville or Fort Gratiot comes in and says, hey, we'll build you a new museum over here, but you got to bring your assets with us, and that was the city's assets at one time.
But that's kind of, when we say everything's...
I don't mind that they get rid of something every now and then if it has no purpose to the city, but the McMorran collection belongs in the city of Port Huron.
But that's not included in this.
But if they moved to Marysville, they could still take it there. I don't care if they got rid of it. They can sell it. I don't care. But if they have it in their possession, then it needs to stay in the city of Port Huron because that's one of our assets. It was donated from somebody from Port Huron or maybe even outside, but it was donated to the Port Huron Museum or to the city, and that needs to stay in the city. So that way somebody can't come, let's say Marysville or Fort Gratiot decides they got some extra money because they're doing well one year that they build a museum, say, come on, move out to the township.
I have to be honest with you, I think it's a legitimate concern. If you look at our maritime collection, which is outstanding, I mean, people have come in and offered us if we could get that model boat or, so I'm comfortable if some sort of restriction, whatever the language we could work out would be, it's fine with me.
I got 100% faith in you, Juanita. I know that, but I don't know who's going to come after you, at some point.
Well, and it's not about you or me or anybody, it's about the institution. And, so I'm comfortable with that sort of restriction if we want to reword something or we want to do a proviso. Well, however it works for me, because I would like to guarantee that the Port Huron Museum stays the Port Huron Museum.
I will say that moving forward, when we say everything's on the table, I would like to see eventually this partnership for the museum expand to a more regional effort, whether that be funding, sharing responsibilities. We have what's in the museum is more of a heritage, not just to Port Huron, but to Fort Gratiot, Port Huron Township, Kimball Township, and St. Clair County as a whole. Moving forward, to keep the museum viable, new partnerships are going to have to be formed in some capacity. I don't know what those are. When I tell people, people ask me about the museum all the time, I said, being completely honest with you, we're having a candid conversation, we're taking one step at a time. We don't know what's going to come of this, but we do know that the current model is unsustainable. And so if Fort Gratiot decides to build a brand new museum and take over the cost, I'd willing to have that conversation with them. I don't think they would, or anyone. I mean, we're looking for some type of new partnership with the county or the townships because it is a regional asset, what is in the museum. So that would be my only caveat to that. And I do have full faith that this is just for things that doesn't have to do with McMorran or anything else. This is just for the junk, for lack of better words.
We're giving up all the titles to everything regardless of what it is, so if it's junk or good stuff, we lose all titles.
But my concern is when people donated stuff to the museum anyways, I don't think people actually assumed they were donating to the city. I think it was always a donation to the museum just through the city. The original intent was no one thought they were donating this item to the city of Port Huron. They were donating to the museum. We just happened to be the middle guy.
Which owned the museum at the time, so people that had that kind of wealth kind of know who they're donating to at that point. So I don't have an issue with them getting rid of the stuff. Like I said, I want to make sure that the museum never leaves Port Huron. And that's one way of doing it, is protect those assets that are there. It says that we'll give you free, clear title, no problem. You do what you want with those assets, but they have to stay here in the city. That's the way I'm going to support it.
I think Susan has something to say.
Well, I just wanted to say that over the years, and I have only been there a short time. In fact, Juanita and I started at the same time. And for years and years and years, all these collections have been going forward. And really the only thing, to my knowledge, that was city-directed or McMorran Authority-directed was the McMorran collection itself. And at no time was there a clear definition at what point it is a museum donation and at what point it was a city donation, except for that collection. And I think we've operated in good faith and always told the city what our plans were, just as we've kept in touch with the McMorran family. None of them are interested in anything we have. And so I understand your concern. At what point was it our collection versus your collection? That was never clearly defined since 1971. This is also helping with that, if you will. And to James' point, there is a lot of junk. And I gave the example to Nicole about broken wicker. And we're going to do the low-hanging fruit first. And we really have to do this. It's been on the to-do list every year, and it just falls off because there's always something else going on. And we're grateful for all that activity. But this has got to be done, and all of these candid discussions are moving us to that point where we are now forced to get to the bottom of what we really have. And when we start there and can fill 2 dumpsters in a single afternoon of truly junk, I want to assure you there's a policy about that too. And I detailed it in your handout. The accessioning and deaccessioning policy are very rigid. And the people on the committee include board members, they include community people, they include SC4 teachers, they include people who just love history. This is a group of 12 very dedicated individuals, and they'll tell you whether or not they think it has value. And sometimes we don't agree, but they override staff's decision. So there is a very distinct process.
My question isn't on the value of the equipment. I could care less if it's worth $1 or $1,000 or $1 million. I want to make sure that that stuff that's in the museum right now stays in Port Huron. I don't want to leave it outside of Port Huron. And that's where my argument with you guys is right now. Is that at some
We
point-
have no intention of liquidating the
You don't,
collection.
right? I don't want, it's not the point. The point is, I don't want you saying, okay, somebody, somehow you have money, or somebody from Fort Gratiot says, I'll build you, but you gotta come out to Fort Gratiot, or you gotta go to Marysville, or you gotta go to Port Huron Township, and you take that collection with whatever you have left, from whatever junk you got rid of, the stuff that you have left, that's gonna go out there to that new building. I wanna make sure that there's no way that the museum can ever leave the city of Port Huron, regardless of what junk it has in there, or what good stuff it has.
But if we do that, then we need to be committed to solely burdening the cost of sustaining that.
But there wouldn't be a museum if it wasn't for the city of Port Huron now, so we've already burdened that cost for many of years.
Can we put a time frame on this, just so they can take care of step number one, which is getting rid of some of this basic old torn wicker and that kind of stuff? And then, as just step one, allowing them to do that, and then, again, in a time frame, if you have a suggestion that allows you to do that before, then it protects us from, because I think I even heard the mayor say something about the sovereignty of Port Huron and the history of Port Huron and being the hub of the county and so on and so forth, the county seat and so on. So that would protect us from that. And I understand what Mr. Lewandowski is saying about that. There is a sense of pride that we sit here and say Port Huron. But I also see what James is saying, as we've had some of our discussions, we really don't know where this is headed. It could be one of those county approaches, but for right now, to allow you to do that,
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm in favor of that part of it.
Is there any way to differentiate between, like, what's currently on display in the collections in the museum and this external storage that we're talking about? Would that help clarify so that you can get the job done, but we're not in danger of relinquishing all the rights to the current collections, like you mentioned, the Maritime, and I know the McMorrin one is in here, but...
But is it even clear I mean, I don't think it's even clear that we currently have legal right to what we're, I mean, some of this stuff was donated to the museum, and we're in good faith doing this, but I think the museum can make a compelling argument that if it's not on the McMorrin list, you don't own it. I think there's a compelling argument that could be made, that we don't really have ownership.
There are documents going way back, because when we wanted to repatriate, which is a great word, some of what was called the McMorrin collection, and this gets Councilperson Lewandowski to an issue you have. It turns out that it was not the McMorrin collection, but rather Clara McMorrin brought it from Saskatchewan after her husband died, and they were actually a Canadian artist painting. And we came to the council with that information, and that actually has been repatriated. They have a program to do, you know, that sort of thing. You know, what our intent was just to do in the off-site storage. We have, over the years, we sort of worked out, and we can't find records of everything, but it was apparently worked out with the city manager's office at some point in the past that over a certain dollar amount, it would have to come to the city council. Over a certain dollar amount, the city manager could do it. And when the first time since I got here that we did it, we went to Bruce, and it had to do with McMorrin and so on, and he was just comfortable, even though he could have approved it, because I think it was up to 1,000 or 5,000, and he was just comfortable coming and was fine with us. So we do have assets, however. Henry Ford at one point donated to the museum, specifically to the museum, not to the city of Port Huron. So we have kind of different categories of stuff, so to speak. But I understand what you're saying, and I'm comfortable with whatever language we would need if you want to give us a time frame, for example, say the rest of this year, and specifically to clean out Watson Brothers. It really wasn't, and then we have some storage, which basically we've worked at it at the Carnegie. It's amazing what you find. But if you know, you want to do some language like that, we're perfectly fine with that. And then at the end, we'd give you a report, or if in interim we find that Van Gogh, you know, anything over a certain dollar amount, we would let you know. Trust me, if we found something of that,
Here's
Not only would we hang on to it, we'd build a room.
Why don't the council table this tonight, allow me to draft an amendment to take into your concerns, and bring back the document at the next meeting with an amendment that would address your concerns about the stuff leaving Port Huron.
And we could do that, or we could, I'll give them, I'd be willing to, as long as you take the rights, titles, and interest wording out of there and let them go ahead and clean out what they need to clean out and get rid of what they need to get rid of, but we still relinquish the titles and rights that we have there so far for now until we can get that hashed out.
So you want to strike on the third fourth paragraph down.
Mayor, before we go to that, could we not just authorize the sale of any collections or other items no longer deemed valuable to be on display in the museum now or in the future?
Yes.
And then therefore, we now still own everything else, but whatever is no longer valuable to you or deemed valuable now or in the future could be then, we've relinquished rights to those pieces.
We can do that.
I'd be willing to support that, yeah. I just want to make sure before we give up all the rights that we're protected at some point.
Okay.
I would like to just add, I mean, I guess one of the things we were talking about, what does the city of Port Huron own and what does the museum own? I'd really like to have that kind of figured out, if I don't know if that's legal counsel or what we do, but we really need to know exactly where we stand with that. But you know, this whole conversation basically has started, which we haven't talked about, but has to do with the actual, where the museum is, which is the Carnegie Building, which requires a lot of maintenance cost on the behalf of the city. And that's basically what the bottom line to this whole conversation is that, and I think the museum would like to clear out those things that they deem junk, I guess, so they know exactly how much space they need, exactly what are their requirements. And then we as a council eventually will be faced with a decision as well. You know, do we want to maintain the museum? Do we want to pay what it's going to cost to refurbish the building? Or do we want to find them a different home? And I agree, in the city of Port Huron, because I do not want to see it go. And if there's anything else we can work out, and I know that you've been looking and we've talked about it, and you know, we have to come to some conclusion at some point. It's not today or tomorrow, but this is their start, and that's what I think that we're just doing right now.
That would allow them to begin the process while we then research who owns what and how do we want to move forward. But at least you would be able to start. If we relinquish any rights of anything deemed not valuable to be displayed now or in the future.
And with the Carnegie Building itself, the harsh reality we face is, in addition to the annual operating expense, which is significant because of the square footage, it needs about $400,000 in repairs that will need to be made sooner than later. The roof will need to be completely replaced. It's got knob and tube wiring that needs to be upgraded, and it has a ventilation HVAC system that also needs to be redone. So we've pegged, rough estimates, we've pegged it about $400,000. And so that's, you know, in addition to the operating costs, that's something that the council is going to have to, at some point in the next 2 years, that roof is going to have to be fixed. And so we'll have to address that. Whether or not the museum's there or not, whether or not the long-term, what are we going to do with that building, that's a question that it's coming down the road. And what I think is incredibly important when you're dealing with a facility like the Carnegie that means so much to people in Port Huron is I want the people of Port Huron to know that, you know, we have a pretty good partnership here and we're having an honest dialogue about what needs to happen. And so we're taking it one step at a time with in mind, you know, protecting our heritage. I think you demonstrate that tonight, you know, protecting our heritage, making sure we're not losing stuff, but at the same time finding a viable way to make this work going forward.
And I said, I don't have any doubt that they're going to do the right thing. They're not going to hurt their ability to operate in the future, so they're not going to get rid of stuff that they, you know just because it might have some value that they want to sell it because they need funds now. So, but I mean, this is part of the problem when we don't have these discussions before and we get them on, you know, just an agenda and no updates or anything going on before these. So, you know, that has to be taken care of too.
We have a motion, which I believe is Mayor Pro Tem Archibald and seconded by Councilmember Lewandowski to change it, and the clerk has a suggestion as to how to change it if you want to read that.
Just real quickly, if I can address, I believe I have spoke about the museum, meetings I've had with the museum, the content of our conversations in every city manager report for the last 3 months.
But I had no idea that we were going to be relinquishing rights anytime soon.
That was in my December city manager report.
That we got when?
Last week.
I didn't see that one come in.
So I've tried being very upfront with the council, and I have included that in my, from the first meeting to the second meeting to the third meeting to before I met with the museum, I have tried briefing the council on that, so it wouldn't be a surprise.
Again, that's why weekly reports are much better, so we don't have 7 pages to try to search through and find something. That's neither here nor there right now, so.
Do you want to read what you think the paragraph should read?
Could I add something too? I did the research to find what did we own, what did they own, and I honestly only found the museum or the McMorran items, and that receipt, I believe, said that once it's theirs to do with it what they want. And engineering drawings, I had a receipt in there for that. I went through minutes to see did council ever approve anything or donate or accept the donation and give it to the museum. So we can do the change for adding no longer deemed valuable and taking out relinquishing all rights, title, and interest any place that's shown in the resolution. Or we could postpone this and correct this and clean it up maybe and do a little bit more review of your records, our records again.
In finding some of the historical stuff, I do have, it goes back ages. I'm sorry I didn't bring it tonight. I didn't realize we'd get in this conversation, but I do have something, aside from McMorran, which we all agree requires McMorran board, but other things when, and it must have been when the city donated the use of the Carnegie. Didn't donate the Carnegie, but the use of the Carnegie. And then a discussion and some documents, and I'm trying to think if it was Jerry Bouchard's signature on it or not, probably.
Council did approve that, and there was agreement saying that anything that you have in your possession, we do have acknowledged that it went through the city, even though it really didn't. But it said that you had the right to get rid of it. This, though, said that we had to give up the rights, and this is what this would do. This part of it, the little things, I guess. So you don't want to get rid of all of the relinquishing all rights, title, and interest. If we add just the no longer deemed valuable to the resolution, where Sherry Archibald, you mentioned that?
Yes, my suggestion was to give us time to research the history and not hold them up, that we would authorize the sale of all art collections or other items donated, purchased by, or stored by the Port Huron Museum, deemed no longer valuable for display or use by the museum.
There you go.
Yeah.
Now or in the future.
Yeah. Deemed no longer, yeah, or in use now or in the future by the museum.
That would allow them, anything they wanted to sell, we automatically relinquish rights as soon as they agree or to deem it no longer valuable. Anything not being sold, somebody still owns. It could be us, it could be you, but it allows us the opportunity to figure that out as we move forward without holding you up.
I do also want to make sure you understand that there are some things that simply, have no value, so we'll just dispose of them.
Correct.
So, yeah, like the broken
However
wicker.
you seem fit, you would have full authority to do with,
Okay.
sell, donate, dispose of, whatever you need to do that is no longer going to be of value to be on display or for your use.
Okay, yeah.
So we have that amendment that's before us.
And let me just clarify, we're taking out and relinquishing all rights, title, and interest, we're taking that out in every area that it says.
Yeah, and then you can.
Yeah, that's in the now
Research
therefore
them.
be it resolved.
Yes, of all other pieces, correct.
Yeah, okay.
So you have the amendment to the resolution, and that's what we need to vote on first, is the amendment to the resolution. So,
Okay, I'm going to stop you for right there, but I don't see anything in here that says that we're going to relinquish rights to, no, I'm talking about in the city manager report.
I don't know, I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah,
I just know that he had the,
Yeah, I mentioned the
Right.
discussions about the issues with junk and.
I don't see anything that says the city was going to relinquish its rights, so to the, never mind though, it doesn't matter at this point.
well, we'll go forward with this amendment.
Can I ask a quick question about timeline here? I mean, there seems to still be a lot of debate. And I guess this is for Susan and Juanita. If we go ahead tonight, I mean, are you planning to start in the next 2 weeks? Or if, we take some time to get our ducks in the row, is that going to hold up your plans?
No, because, actually, we already started. because you have to like look at everything, you have to catalog it in the sense of, you know, what is it you've got, what, and that's some of what you see, those pictures, you know, we're going to take a look. We have like 4 gurneys from the old Port Huron Hospital, you know, that kind of stuff. I mean, what we'll do is you'll separate the stuff that is obviously totally not useful, broken, whatever, or nobody knows what it is, that type of thing. So we'll do that. We're going to go ahead and do that. And then we'll look at anything that seems, you know, oh my gosh, this might be valuable. We haven't seen anything like that yet, and we've sort of taken a cursory look, but we've got people committed now, and we'd like to keep rolling with it. Okay. So you know, a couple weeks, a month isn't going to make that big a difference. If it was a couple months,
okay.
You know,
I was just curious on that.
And it would be nice to clarify, to kind of figure this out once and for all. I'll dig up all my stuff.
Yeah, because I don't want to hold you guys up for making progress, but.
No, I mean, we can sort of, you know, determine what we're going to do. And
simultaneously, I mean, we could move forward with this, and we still do the other thing.
Yeah, I think it'll be fine, yeah. Thank you.
So we do have an amendment on the floor that we need to vote on.
Real quick before you vote, I do want to thank you ladies for your time and effort. Last time I checked, I didn't think you were getting rich serving on the board. Yeah, and so I know it's a remarkable time and effort protecting our heritage. I do thank you ladies for just the work you do. It's a lot of times people forget about it, but we appreciate you and what you do. Thank you.
We have the motion on the amendment. We'd take a vote.
Councilmember Cole?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Lewandowski?
Just to qualify, what are we,
No longer deemed valuable or in use now or in the future, and remove any references to relinquish all rights, title, and interest.
no, yes.
Councilmember Ruiz?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Mayor Rep?
Yes, we now have the motion as amended, and we will vote on that.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Lewandowski?
That was just voting on the actual resolution as amended.
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Cole?
Yes.
Mayor Rep?
Yes. We will move on to ordinances number 1.
One second here. Number 1 is an ordinance to amend Chapter 52 zoning, Article 3, District Regulations, Division 1 generally, Section 52-162, map of the Port Huron Code of Ordinances for the purpose of rezoning the vacant lots located at 1400 Cedar Street from an M1 Light Industrial District zoning district to an R1 Single and Two-Family Residential District zoning district.
Is there a motion?
So move.
Councilmember Ashford, is there a second?
Second?
Councilmember Cole, is there discussion?
Just one question, Mayor.
Yes,
Are these
Councilmember.
pieces of property adjacent to the ones we just sold as adjoining properties to the neighbor that we had vacant land? We talked about it had utilities underneath it, and I just kind of wondered whether this was the same properties or not.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. They're actually one and the same. They're the same 2 parcels that were sold earlier. We now, per our agreement with that property owner, are going in and asking for them to be rezoned so that it's compatible with his and he can combine it with his existing.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. We'll take the vote.
Councilmember Lewandowski?
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Cole?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Mayor Rep?
Yes, that concludes our regular agenda. Just a couple of announcements. The city offices will be closed next Monday, January 19th, in observance of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And also, I encourage people, there's a great program at the college. I believe it starts at 6 o'clock, and if you get a chance to go to it, you should. And also, the Community Development Division is conducting an online survey to identify housing and community development needs. Results will be used to prioritize the use of grant funds received in the next 5-year consolidated plan. So you can visit our website, www.porthuron.org, to complete the survey. Is there anything else from anyone on council before we adjourn?
Operation Transformation on the 18th, that Sunday.
Yes, they have a community church service that's at First Congregational Church at 3 o'clock. Yes. Yes, Councilmember.
The second weekend of Silver Stick and Chili Fest will happen in 2 weeks.
Yes, it will. Thank you. Anyone else? A motion to adjourn, please?
So move.
Meeting adjourned.